What's happening, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of Photo Talkies, where I walk you through my creative process at the time I shot an image, what I considered when I edited the image in Lightroom, and how I prepared the image for printing. This print will be mailed, yes, physically mailed, to one of my supporters on Patreon, so if you love print media and postcards and would want some mailed to you monthly, check out my page linked below. Spaces are filling up fast there, but let's get to it. Today we are looking at an image from my time in Monaco, which is a small nation on the Mediterranean coast, wedged between southeast France and northwest Italy. Even though it's one of the smallest countries in the world, I found myself amazed with just how big Monaco felt. Because most of the country is a city, you feel like you're walking around not in a small Mediterranean country, but in a big European city, because, well, in a sense, you are. The country is also built on a very steep incline, so as you walk around, you are constantly changing elevation, and that will shift your perspective because there's always something like an overlook or a cliff face to remind you of your position in relation to the sea. Down by the waterfront is a series of industrial tunnels carved into the rock. I presume they're used for storage or maintenance, but that's where I found this boat. It was peeking its head out in a really fun way, and I wanted to build a scene around it. Let's desaturate the image and take a look at what is taking up space in the frame. If we were to identify the three largest shapes, they would be, and these are technical terms by the way, we have the horned rectangle, the circle stick, and the row of cubes. Together, these three elements take up the most weight in the scene. When we bring the color back in, you can see how each of the elements gets further accentuated. The horned rectangle has a dark background behind it that really lifts it out. There's the circle stick with its own shadow, adding additional weight to its composition. And then the row of cubes that forms both a pattern and leading lines from the edge to the middle of the frame. So now that we have our elements, let's talk a bit about the adjustments I made. The most important detail I considered was the shadow behind the boat. That shape was going to be the centerpiece, so it was very important to make sure that those shadows were punchy, but not unnatural looking, right? I wanted to have some light bleeding through. Those ventilation units and that security camera act almost as, I don't know, a kind of punctuation for that negative space, which is why I kept them in. The sign and its shadow and the wall all had really fun colors. The fluorescent light overhead combined with the ambient daylight had a very small hint of magenta being cast on that wall, so I wanted to bring that out a little bit. I left the garbage cans essentially as is. I didn't even put a vignette on this image. I think there's certainly a way to touch up and glamorize garbage cans, but here their value to the image to me was in their quantity, not necessarily in any interesting colors or textures they may have had. When all this gets put together, it creates a strange collection of items from both modern life and modern city life. Monaco is a country that has a lot of glitz and glamour projected onto it, but I appreciate that this image shows something of a different side of this country. As a tourist, you constantly get a very manicured presentation of the place you are visiting, so I felt lucky to stumble across this scene that existed almost entirely for necessity, right? Those ventilation ducts needed to be there, that boat probably needed to be there, the sign, security camera, garbage cans, all of that needed to be there, and yet as compositional elements, they still managed to arrange themselves in a way that created this beautiful and colorful moment. I just happened to be walking by at the right time. I hope you enjoy it. So, if you love photography and physical media, follow me for more, and if you want this and other prints mailed to you, check out my Patreon. All the best. Bye-bye.